Hey team, I hope this week's the start of your week has started off great in terms of your training and you had a great weekend. Today's topic I wanted to go over what happens only above your anaerobic threshold. And we have this concept of anaerobic threshold where you're running at that intensity roughly around 88 to 92% of your maximum heart rate. And the anaerobic threshold, what it is the highest exercise intensity that you can sustain for a prolonged period without lactate substantially building up in your blood. So we're running at a high enough intensity where we're getting a training stimulus, but we're able to clear lactic acid optimally, but it's still faster than a regular, easy, relaxed long run. It's going to stress your system. The longer you can spend, the longer duration you can spend training at the anaerobic threshold, the improvement of your body's lactate tolerance is going to definitely happen. But what actually happens when you go over your anaerobic threshold is, your anaerobic metabolism increases and your blood lactate starts to accumulate. So this causes our muscles to stiffen, and the hydrogen ion component of lactic acid is what temporarily shuts down muscle functioning. You have a harder time being able to sustain your goal race pace. And so when you train above your anaerobic threshold, your lactic acid can no longer be removed quickly enough and recombine with other molecules to make more energy as we train. So the key concept here is, yes, you definitely want to train above the anaerobic threshold. So VO2 max workouts where you're running around 95 to 100% of your max heart rate, doing repeat 200s, repeat 400s, repeat thousands on the track, running at paces, if you're training for a marathon, running down toward your 3K to 5K race pace. Those types of efforts are what you want to do. You want to get above the anaerobic threshold. You not only want to train for a longer period of time training at your anaerobic threshold, but you also want to spend once per week training above the anaerobic threshold. Our muscles, they burn glucose two different ways. Aerobically, which means with oxygen, or anaerobically without oxygen. So most athletes enter the anaerobic threshold zone when they're putting in some very difficult, aggressive training and a lot of power output over a short period of time. So like doing intervals, tempo runs, fartlek workouts, that's when you're using energy that's readily available, but that won't last that long. So you're obviously, when you're training at VO2 max, when you're running above anaerobic threshold effort, we have to take small, short breaks. The key concept, though, is as you're training above your anaerobic threshold and training at anaerobic threshold, is you want to eventually get to a point where your paces per mile or paces per kilometer, if you're doing reps on the roads or reps on the track, the key concept is to get those reps run those reps at a faster pace, but minimize the amount of recovery you're giving yourself in between each one of your repetitions, because we're not going to get any rest in a race. And anaerobic threshold, what it feels like, when you go over your anaerobic threshold, your anaerobic metabolism increases and your blood lactate starts to accumulate. So that's going to obviously require much more oxygen. The faster we train, the more intense the workouts, the more inflammation that we build up. So, when you're training at your aerobic and anaerobic threshold, when you're running at your aerobic threshold, the aerobic energy system gives you more long-lasting energy because it burns predominantly fat storage. So you can run for long periods of time training, at your aerobic threshold. You can train for a much longer period of time. So it is very important to train at the aerobic threshold, but when you're training at the anaerobic energy system capability, you're producing energy more quickly, and that's going to allow us to exercise at higher intensities as the body adapts. And the only way really to improve the body's lactate tolerance is doing hill repetitions, doing track intervals, doing tempo runs, doing anaerobic threshold runs, which are slightly faster, about 10 to 15 seconds faster than a tempo run. So doing all of these combinations of very intense training, VO2 max, moderately intense training, anaerobic threshold, and then running at the aerobic threshold, where again you're running around 60 to 70% of max heart rate. You can go for an hour to even a couple hours at your aerobic threshold. But some of the things that helped me in longer races, even shorter races, was really focusing on training at paces that I knew I was not going to be able to hold for my particular goal race. My main race was the marathon, still is, but I was always training at under 5-minute mile pace or under 18-kilometer pace in training so that I could get that goal race pace for me in the marathon distance to feel easier. And so training above the anaerobic threshold is absolutely key if you want to get faster and you want to get to a point where you can sustain your goal race pace longer than your competition, where you can stay more relaxed at faster paces, where you can teach the body to burn fat at faster paces and conserve what we have much less of, which is glycogen, glucose storage. Those are very, very important concepts of training. And the anaerobic threshold is going to vary from athlete to athlete. For athletes who regularly do interval style workouts, their anaerobic thresholds are going to be much higher and more conditioned than those who do long, steady state workouts or those who don't really train at very intense efforts that often. So the more you can perform high intensity workouts, the better you can condition your anaerobic threshold and process that lactate in the body, and the faster you're going to be able to run again at goal race pace, and the more economic, the more efficient you're going to be when it comes time for you to race. And I think again the concept is, when you look at the world's top middle to long distance runners, they're just spending a significant amount of time training at faster efforts. So they make it look easy for a reason. It's not just because they're Kenyan or Ethiopian or Japanese. A lot of these countries, most of the time we're always focused on Kenya and Ethiopia. Some of the world's top distance runners are from Norway, Japan, China. All of these athletes, the ones that you see running so relaxed and sustaining goal race pace and looking so easy, are the athletes that are spending a higher percentage of their weekly volume training at the anaerobic threshold, above the anaerobic threshold, and most certainly at VO2 max effort. So some of the times it's not that if you're having issues sustaining pace, look at how you're setting up your training. It could just be that you're very heavy in terms of your aerobic training, but you have to spend a higher percentage of what you're doing each week training at much more aggressive efforts. And I really think that's a common mistake that a lot of athletes make. We do get hyped up and we get excited about putting in high mileage weeks. I am running 80, 90 miles a week. Okay, well, what percentage of that mileage are you running each week training below your anaerobic threshold, above it, and training at paces that you're not going to sustain in a 10K, you're not going to sustain in a half marathon or a marathon. So getting outside of your comfort zone, really stressing the energy systems of the body so that, again, you get to the start line in peak shape, you get to the finish line in a new personal best, and most importantly, your ability to sustain your race pace longer than your competition. That energy expenditure throughout the race is absolutely key. You're not going too anaerobic, you're not redlining too early in the race, and the only way to do that is a combination of training at or below your anaerobic threshold. And not to say that easy running is not important. Definitely do not misunderstand me. You still have to run high amounts of volume in terms of building that endurance, building your fat burning capability. But I also know that if you really want to get to the next level in your competitions on the roads and on the track, you have to make sure you're training much faster paces and improving your pain tolerance, getting outside of your comfort zone, doing more than just running easy 95% of the time. Okay, so think about these things as you think about what are some of the benefits of training above the anaerobic threshold, and looking at how your heart doesn't have to work as hard, because again your body's ability to clear lactic acid is much more efficient when you become race fit, as opposed to when you're just starting off in a training buildup and you're really having a hard time just running easy, relaxed kilometers, or easy relaxed mileage when it's a chore to just get out and to be able to go out and do an 8 kilometer run or 20K. So you have to be patient with yourself in the early build-up. Build that aerobic base first, and then start training at faster paces. In this case, above the anaerobic threshold and below the anaerobic threshold, and also training at paces that you're only going to be able to sustain for a few minutes or a few miles or kilometers at VO2 max effort. That's really key too, because it's going to make your easy pace when you go out to go for an easy run feel that much easier, and it's most certainly going to help you when it comes time for you to race, and where you are able to make some moves. You're going to be able to throw in some surges in a race, and you're going to be able to see how your competition reacts to that. Don't even worry about your competition, but if you're 100% ready, you're going to be able to make those types of intensity changes in your races, and you're going to be able to control not only yourself, but control the competition if you've done it right. Okay, so I hope this video is helpful for you in terms of thinking about what happens only above your anaerobic threshold and some of the physiological adaptations that occur when you do that. So if you have any other questions regarding this concept, feel free to leave me a comment below. I really appreciate all of your comments, and liking these videos, sharing these videos really motivates me to continue to build this channel. And really, obviously, this channel is about you all as well that watch these videos. It's not just about what I share. Really, your comments, your sharing of your own knowledge helps the visitors of this channel as well. So I really appreciate you stopping by. If you're new to this channel, hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so when I make a new video, you'll be notified of it. And I will talk to you guys and gals all in the next video.